This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
Welcome to Synchronicity. How many episodes can I do in a week? I think 3 will be it this week. My guest this week is Stephen Kampmann. Is this Stephen's 4th time or 3rd time? I think 4th time. One of my favorite people to talk to. Expert in dreams and just a really insightful guy who's lived an interesting life and birthed one of my other favorite people, Mikey Kampmann. So, you know, it's good. Well, I guess he didn't birth, but he created. It's his progeny. Anyway, so this episode is great because it dovetails nicely with what we've been talking about. And thank you for everyone for the amazing feedback and everyone who's sending in those imaginal acts. I'm still on them. I'm doing them. I'm excited to hear the feedback when the things happen. But this is a nice episode because dreams, right? What are dreams? People don't even talk about dreams that much. And when they do, they're weird and sometimes people can't relate. And then you find the odd person who knows about dream symbolism, or they've read a lot of Carl Jung and they start using dreams to access states of their unconscious and all of these other things and the collective unconscious. It's just a cool gateway, right? But what if this is a dream? What if it is? Well, it's weird. Sometimes it feels dream. There's a Bob Marley quote too. I don't remember which song, but he goes, "Some people think this life is a dream. They're only making matters worse." That one fucked me up for a little bit. It's like, what? Okay, got to take this shit seriously. Go into the world and figure out what the fuck is going on, which is truly what you're supposed to do. But something I've been realizing lately is you got to deal with your own shit first, not just conceptually. And the easiest way to figure out if you have shit going on inside of you is if you notice shit in other people out there. Not that you just notice it, that you get bothered by it, that you get triggered by it, that you get emotionally upset by it. Those are all signs that something is popping up for you. And yes, there are injustices and horrible things and traumatic things and things that shouldn't happen that take place in the world. And I'm not saying let's passively just allow these things to happen, but you will be far more effective at doing what you're supposed to do if you take care of yourself first, not in a selfish way. You still pay attention to what's going on. Don't tune out. Still pay attention. Cast an eye, bear witness, do what you're supposed to do, but make sure you got your shit together. Make sure you got all your gear on you that you need to go out there in that world of fucking sorrow and misery and horrible things, right? It's just a good idea. So dreams can be this, all of the things we use to access our dreams and the way we use dreams to unlock aspects of ourselves and our lives, we can apply to this reality too. So that's what's really interesting about it, because when you get to talk to someone like Stephen, like he has been fascinated with dreams. He's got this dreams course where he's essentially mentoring people for free, as you'll hear. It's just me asking people to make a donation to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. Like that's, you know, when someone's really doing something right, that if they're sharing what they love and they're passionate about without a monetization scheme in mind for that thing. Like, here's the deal. You can make money however you want. I'm making money in some fun ways now, but you make, you know, like if I something about, and I've said this before, I think in the earlier episode, the last one or the one before, I'm never monetizing the idea, not the idea, the reality that your imagination creates reality. That's, I could come up with a course, a retreat, a blah, 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 because this shit will fucking change your life. Like it's rare that someone can deliver on selling you the Brooklyn Bridge. You know what I mean? Like that's why someone tell you, you're going to sell me the Brooklyn Bridge. Now I'm actually going to deliver the Brooklyn Bridge to your fucking door. So, I mean, of all the things to monetize, that's the jackpot. But why? Why would you do it? It's because you lack imagination if that's how you think you have to do it. You can imagine any other scenario. So don't do that one. But I bring this up because we can use dreams as a portal into examining this reality of imagination, creating external reality, materiality. We do this through symbolism. We do this through our actual dreams that we have at night and then connecting to them to the aspects of our lives. We can identify things like archetypes and patterns and complexes and things that seem to reappear that feel like us so weirdly. So these same things keep happening sometimes. So odd. It's because it's you. But again, any modality that you're well versed in is applicable to this idea of imagination. That's the beautiful thing about it. And I don't say that in a kind of a wishy-washy way. Like, I fucking been interested in a lot of different stuff throughout the years and really diligently, studied it. Anyone who knows me knows I get intensely passionate about things I love and am interested in. That's just how it goes. I don't know. It's just the way I was born. It's the way I imagine myself. And for that reason, like, I can tell you that, like, all of those modalities, I haven't found one that's like, they're not scams. Even the ones that are scams sometimes don't turn into scams because people believe them truly and faithfully, right? You ever see those weird documentaries on Netflix, I think it was, where like there's like the cult families and like there's the guy who's like clearly Looney Tunes and he's got like the short shorts on and he's like doing crazy fucking weird sex things with everyone there. And he, it's just obvious to anyone looking in, but then he would go and do these like energy transferences to people's heads. And like that, you could see it was something was going on. And, that's known as Shaktiput and the Vedic traditions. And what we're experiencing there is either someone's belief, the person getting that something is happening, therefore it happens, or his belief making something happen and then the actual thing happening. And it's not so weird and it's not so hard to understand if what I say is true, that your imagination creates your reality. So again, this episode is fantastic. If you want to go connect with Stephen for his mentorship classes, and I highly recommend it. I'm pretty confident this will fill it very quickly for him. Again, there's just a donation to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, but use his email, which is linked to, I'm not going to fuck it up, in this podcast. So if you're whatever app you're using or website, it's there. You just click it and it'll take you see his email, you email him, and then you can get started because I think it'll be pretty good for those of you who make the connection that this is the thing for you. Stephen's a really genuinely, all of my conversations on air and off air have gone pretty much the same, which is I'm always like, holy shit, this applies to that. That applies to that. Holy crap, this guy knows a lot of stuff. So enjoy this episode. Big thanks to the guys at Ned. Go to helloned.com. I was going to say /sync. That's not a thing. Just go to helloned.com and use the code SYNC, SYNC at checkout. You get 15% off. Again, this is only CBD oil I use. It's full spectrum hemp oil. Listen to that's all I can say. I could go on and on about how they play music to the plants and binaural beats and they grow them with love and they actually genuinely give a shit about the community. I could do that. Or you could just go listen to the episode with them after this or some other time and get a sense of who they are and see if you're going to use CBD for any healing benefits or whatever it is, you imagine it to be a miracle tonic and therefore it is. These are the guys. So let's do a little imaginal exercise that anyone who uses that code is going to get the real good stuff. You know what I mean? So that's it for this episode. Rate and review. The ratings are coming in. The download numbers were so weird. They're going up. Everything is going up. It's so weird. Why is that happening? If you like the show, if any of these episodes about imagination have helped you, share it with someone you love and care about. You never know. If you want to test your own imaginal properties, imagine that when you tell people about this stuff, rather than looking at you askew and casting doubt, someone gets it. Maybe a lot of them get it. Maybe everyone gets it, because then we're moving into a pretty cool version of reality. Okay, without further ado, here is Stephen Kampmann. Let's start here. Let's start recording. Let me do the perfunctory thank you. Thanks for coming on, Stephen.
Love it. Being on. I think it's been a year since we spoke last, and I'm just filled with thoughts and ideas, and all those kind of good things. Want to hear what you've been up to. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. These are always some of my favorite episodes. Let's start right where we were. You were talking about this idea, which I very much subscribe to. This is a big Jungian thing too, is that, kind of the as above, so below, in the same way that we individuate ourselves or succumb to our shadows or any of the processes that we could go through psychologically, emotionally, whatever. Nations go through that. Globally, we go through that. Groups go through that. Social groups. What is your kind of takeaway for how we can use that perspective to not mitigate, but let's say navigate, the world that you were just talking about, politics? I know this is getting every age group, every demographic is caught up somehow in the political landscape, regardless of how much they're tuning in. So, like, what do you think, that idea provides us, in terms of perspective?
First of all, I just can't imagine Trump's dreams. That right away scares me. Second of all, I would never take him on as a dreamer. That's the second thing. I think we were just talking about it in my lifetime, which spans many decades. This is the most, the kind of darkest time that I've experienced, in the sense of things seem to be falling apart. Things aren't making sense like they did
Externally,
as they may have done. Externally, and I think that's the message. The message, and certainly that's what I want to do in the course, is if you're looking to the outside external world for the answers, you're going to probably be pretty disappointed. You're going to have to shift that consciousness over to your inside life and find your true power. And that's really what the Dreams course is all about.
So we've been talking about the Dreams course. For people who don't know, the Dreams course is essentially a one-on-one mentorship, right? That's exactly what it is, where people are coming to you to learn about their own dreams and how to kind of find their true calling and individuate or actualize what they really should and feel like they should be doing. And I'm going to link this later on to something that my audience at this point, my listeners at this point have heard me talk about a lot ad nauseum, but I think this is the starting and focal point of anything that anyone's going to do, is finding how to find the thing, through this symbolic language of dreams. How do you do that? So tell me what the Dreams course has evolved into for you.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's taken me a while. I'm backtracking a second just to give it to you.
Sure.
I've always envied the people who have been born with a purpose. They know they want to be a doctor, or they want to be some significant, a teacher, or whatever they want to be. That wasn't my calling. And a lot of the people, the dreamers, I call them the dreamers. Those are the people I work with. Many of the people I work with don't know what are younger, tend to be in their 20s, which are always very hard, maybe early 30s. And I think they sense a lack of purpose. And for me, my life was such that I started out to be a therapist and had mentorship by an amazing woman named Dr. Elizabeth Forsberg. And then I went into show business and was affected by many comedians. And then I went into teaching, was affected by and mentored by many teachers at the school I went to. And now I've arrived at this point in my life. And what I realize is what I want to offer is not therapy, but mentorship. And mentorship means I want to help those people who feel a little bit out of whack, out of purpose, don't fit in exactly, don't feel in sync. And I want to help those to discover their own path to individuation. And let me just say what that is, because people often get that confused with individual versus individuation. Individuation really is a lifelong journey to become the complete individual you were meant to be by integrating opposing elements of your personality and discovering the true purpose in your life. It's really what makes you unique. And my job as a mentor is to help you get on in awareness through your dreams to your own path of individuation. That's my job. My job isn't to live out your life or be a therapist or check in with you. My job is to reinforce your calling to be different, to be yourself, to not to look to the external world, but learn to trust your inner life as your guide.
Yeah, I mean, and we've spoken about it, but talk a little bit about the role of mentorship in your life and kind of why you view it as such an important. And I also, just to say, like, I have realized in my life, from people who have helped me and when I've accidentally been able to help other people, that the role of mentorship is just like, it's kind of like this elusive term that is now basically sacrilegious and is totally corrupted because a lot of things that are going on in the West, of the guru, right? It's like a mentor is someone who you can go to and implicitly trust has your best interest, is there to kind of help you realize what's already in you. They're not going to give you some secret magical thing that you have to keep coming back to them for, but they're going to actually be there to help support you as you figure out and discover who you are and what you want to be, right? I mean, I just talk a little bit because I know your thoughts on this. I spoke to a lot of people. I never really heard mentorship broken down and kind of with the mystical overtones and like the actual real importance it has in practical life.
No, it's really, it's, you just said it. It's not, you're not there. You're there to help them find what is already there. It's really an awareness, to bring in an awareness, and also to help them with the confidence to take risk, to trust that inner calling and don't turn away from it because parents or teachers or society is telling you, you can't do that, you can't do this. The only people we really admire in life are all the people who took risk and followed their own path. Those are the heroes. Those are the biographies we read, whether it's political, social, psychological, like Carl Jung or Freud. These people didn't just follow the kind of the what do you call it, the
beaten path.
That path. They've chosen even the Frost poem. There are two roads. I took the one less
traveled,
used, less traveled.
Yeah,
that's really what this course is about. What is your path? And it probably is less traveled and it's probably a little scary, but that's where your power is. It's not going to be in the external world. It's going to be in the internal world. And once you're in that world and connect with that kind of universal will and be part of that, you're just a different human being. You truly are a different person.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about this internal world and the validity and reality of that. So I am now a firm subscriber to the idea, and I don't know that I would have staked out this stance a year ago. I probably wouldn't. I would have intuitively felt like this, but I wouldn't have said, yeah, I'm pretty sure, like 100%. I now believe that consciousness, awareness, I amness, whatever you want to call it, precedes our external reality. I think that everything we see is essentially comes about from what I call and refer to as our imagination, our sense of I am, and what we essentially picture and load with sensory and emotional and mental resonance actually happens out in the world, regardless of whether we recognize this as happening or not. So this then, for me, has shifted reality into a world much more like a dream. Now, I don't think there aren't real world consequences. Like, I recognize gravity exists. I recognize that if I cut myself open, there will be tons of blood everywhere and I'll probably die. But in terms of what can happen and what can be revealed in our waking life, I found a technique and a few different kind of perspectives that have really convinced me that this is actually how things are, not just from a conceptual level, but from a direct experience. So why I'm really interested to talk to you about all of this, as the dreams course and just your perspective on dreams is you have a wealth of knowledge and so many years of just really not just studying and reading about it, but being passionate and being genuinely curious about this stuff. So I feel like you are an excellent guide, and just to be clear, I think what I'm saying about consciousness preceding reality, that goes for everyone, whether you realize it or not. So if people can start using some of the insights that you've gleaned from when we go to sleep and have dreams and applying it to their lives now. As you described in the beginning, like external reality seems to be crumbling for a lot of people. It doesn't mean that the world is going to end in Armageddon. It's going to be some horrible catastrophe, although it could certainly be going that way. But it means something has to change. You mentioned it, like there's some transformational element of something going on here. So my question to you is what do you think of the idea of consciousness and awareness preceding our external reality? Then B, what have you gleaned from the dream world that could be applicable if that's the case? And this is essentially a dream. What are your takes on those two things?
Well, I read, did you read that Deepak Chopra book, The Universe, We Are the Universe, or The Universe is Us? And it's basically that consciousness pre-existed everything.
Yeah,
and that we're I shift into interchangeable spaces of consciousness, but its consciousness is the holy grail.
Yeah, I haven't read any.
I don't know enough. I go with Socrates that said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
Right.
The older I get, the less I know, but my curiosity has increased. And here's something interesting. When I'm doing the dreams course with a dreamer, I call a client a dreamer, because one thing is mandatory in my course is you do have to remember your dreams. It's not a course to teach you how to remember your dreams. Plenty of books on that. This is you already are a dreamer. But what's really interesting, it's kind of what we're doing now. Really, a hour-long session is really a good conversation, but it's all coming from not the external. How are you? What do you do for a living? Who your parents, it's all the inside stuff. And the energy created by discussing the inside realities through our dreams, discovering. So if someone gives me a dream, we'll find usually something in that dream that will be an issue of some sort in their life, and then we discuss it. But the conversation is like, it's no longer external. It's no longer I care what job you're doing or not doing. It's all about talking to one another in this kind of inner language. And it's so energizing. It's just, not just for, I hope, the person that I'm doing that with, but for me.
Right.
I always end every time it says, how do you compare your energy now at the end of our talk than at the beginning? And I would say 90% of the time, the energy is up because we're finally talking about things that actually are authentic and matter. And that's what's important.
So what do you think the operative principle is that creates more energy? I also respect your Socrates opinion. I've gotten really, like I said, much more into the Greek philosophers and kind of their whole lineage and what they believed and, some of the more esoteric aspects of it. And, they were all mystics, the real big ones at the end of the day. And, my favorite Socrates thing is, as much as he claimed that he didn't know, we all knew he knew a lot. He, is in the Phaedra, which is Plato. He talks about when Socrates basically proves that reincarnation happens with the person by using the analogies of going to sleep and waking up, which dovetails nicely into your dreams course, because these are, they're different states of consciousness. No one has to look up in a book and read that to understand that when you dream and you go to sleep at night, what's happening isn't happening to your physical body, right? But the validity of it obviously is there. So what do you think is the kind of catalyst for when people are talking to you or going through your dreams course, and feeling more energized, feeling closer aligned to their individuation process? What do you think is happening? Like you've done this now a few times. Like what's the mechanism there?
Well, the mechanism usually will begin with a dream of some sort, which dovetails into all sorts of tangents. And you finally are looking what tangent strikes a chord.
Right.
And if it strikes a powerful, energized, or repressed urge or whatever, that's where we sit, that's where we discuss, that's where we talk, that's where we open it up. And in opening it up, you effectively are kind of connecting. You're connecting one-on-one, for one thing, through a dream. And once you come to some kind of agreed explanation for a dream or a part of a dream, often, by the way, it's not the whole dream that I interpret or I'm interested in. It's usually a small part, a word or a building or a person. And that's what kind of triggers it. But the way I approach the dreams are every part of a dream, every character in a dream that you come across is some part of yourself.
Okay. Yes.
And so what happens, you talk about the energy. It's an energy course in the sense that as we come to know and reclaim parts of ourselves that we have ignored or not known, and take ownership for those fragmented parts of yourself, it's like we're a shattered mirror and we're trying to put the pieces together.
Yes.
Well, as the pieces come together, your energy is being increased because the whole mosaic is now got, it's like a puzzle. You're putting pieces in, and as that thing moves toward wholeness, your energy is becoming released and available to you in consciousness.
Right. This makes a tremendous amount of sense, and that's, I think, exactly what's going on. This is what I think our world is too, right? I think even when we look at someone like Donald Trump and we go, we're not like that. That's fucking horrible. Like, who would be like that? Well, the truth is, if metaphysically you believe in any of the concept of non-duality and we're all one, well, guess what? That is you too. There may be a tiny 0.001% of your personality that is Donald Trump, but this is what I'm realizing about this kind of mental flip of just being like, here's what I've been doing recently. I feel like you would appreciate this, is I will catch myself throughout the day, times good and bad and neutral, and just say, this is the dream. The reality is my imagination. And, yeah, that's a fun, weird thing to do. But I found that if you kind of charge your imagination with a certain realness, sensory realness, and emotional kind of resonance, you can start creating things in this reality without taking direct steps in this reality to make them happen. And essentially, when you step in, and I'm sure you're familiar, most people are familiar with this, who have created and had strong visions of what they wanted, and then they step into them. But this is something that's a replicable and operative principle that, since I discovered it, like, I don't know, 45 days ago, 60 days ago, the amount of times I've stepped into an actively imagined situation, sometimes within minutes, is really, really, really astounding. And eventually it kind of just flips this is why I love speaking to you now, because when you say, I'm asking you, like, what do you do in the dreams course? So, like, what's that operative? And you talk about the mirror being placed back together and kind of putting these things of yourself and rectifying and shining a light on them and putting it back and feeling more energized. I truly believe this is what we're doing in this life as well. And when we forget that and we externalize and we do the dance that we can do internally, externally, it just slows us down a tiny bit. It's not like the worst thing in the world and you're like, it's a sin and irredeemable. But I've noticed, especially in the realm of politics, this happens so much. And it's not like I approve of really anything Donald Trump is doing, but the more I can recognize him as an aspect of myself, I can be morally, ethically, consciously opposed to his actions, but recognize that, you know what, there's a little Donald Trump in everyone. It's this weird kind of healing, charging. You don't get depleted by it anymore. It's a weird thing I've noticed.
It's interesting because I'm going to come back to it, but Carl Jung talked about active imagination, I think, which he said is as valid as a dream.
Yes.
You're lying in bed and you're not asleep, but you're imagining a different world.
Yes.
You're creating a different world. And he would say, if he had patients and things, he would analyze and deal with the active imaginations as much as the dreams. The other thing I wanted to say about what you said before about the Donald Trump, I think is really interesting, because what I said about individuation, it's actually not only just figuring out who you are, but it's integrating opposing elements of your personality.
Right.
And that's what you mean by the Trump. Trump is kind of the negatives are the narcissistic, the dark, that side of himself. But we've seen this side. We saw this in Hitler. We've seen this in the world forever. It's not new, and that darkness ultimately has to belong to us as a species. We have cruelty in us. We have darkness in us. Many, thank God, people have far less darkness and far more light. Most people are pretty good, but nevertheless, it's not until you accept your own nonsense, your own darkness and your own light, and realize that they're integrated as one. That's where all the individuation comes, when you finally aren't fighting the opposites, but you're accepting them as different elements of the same thing. You're not trying to be all light.
Yes.
And you're not all dark.
Yes. Okay.
So I think Trump is a reminder to take a look at your own self. In every situation you're in, every single day, you're given an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Your choice. Impatience standing in line in a bank, getting mad at someone for some reason, failing to go and apologize when you should have apologized right away.
Right.
Doing thoughtful things without looking for recognition. These are the things that build us up and affect everything in us, including the dreams and everything. This is why the patient, the people I want, the dreamers I want to come, are often just the people that feel a bit disjointed. They're not terrible people. They're not horribly neurotic people. They're people that don't feel in sync, and they know there's more. They're seekers.
Yeah.
And I want the seekers. I want the seekers, and I want to be part of that, to let them know that it's okay being where they are right now. It's okay not to have all the answers. This is a lifetime process that, by the way, you're in a different world than you were 2, 3, or 4 years ago. I'm at a time in life with different things going on. My own unfolding of my own individuation continues, as yours does.
Of course. And I think
it's exciting. That's exciting. I love that.
I love it too. I also love that, at least from a metaphysical standpoint and my conception of what life is, as I've moved from different idea or, feeling or whatever it is, I've been able to kind of integrate and piece them together in a way that doesn't feel forced or just the human compulsion to make patterns of things, but I think reveals just slightly more of the small sliver of understanding of what we get about that's going on in this world. I really think, change is obviously the nature of this world. If anything, people can agree on that. Things do not stay the same. And I think learning how to kind of deal with that reality in this world and having some perspective on it, and especially using dreams, which, I mean, being able to go and use, something that is unconsciously generated, you didn't devise it, with your conscious mind to get to the bottom of something, I think is a very, very powerful tool, because what it does is it teaches us the importance of direct experience and relying on ourselves to get meaning and understanding out of things. I forgot that Jung spoke about active imagination. So let me just tell you this technique, so you can hear it. And, I strongly encourage you to try it, and anyone you know and care about, for them to try it too. So I'll preface it by saying the only ethical framework let me just say this: it's a neutral technique, meaning that you could use this for really great things, or you could use this for really fucked up things. There is no perspective on it that, this only works for good stuff. So I think an ethical framework or guidelines, before going over it, is somewhat useful, because it's a pretty powerful thing and it's worked for me. That said, I think it's harder to do fucked up things with this. People can naturally do it, but intentionally it gets more difficult. But anyway, here's the technique. Let's give me the ethical framework. Golden rule and know thyself. Those are the only two things that I really think are important for using this. And one of those things, know thyself, is essentially, in a nutshell, what your dreams course does. So that's why I think it's really going to be effective for you, because you're really teaching people how to get that one know thyself, individuation process started. For me, the person you were describing, in their 20s and early 30s, that was me. that was me. So I completely relate to who this is targeted for and who you're trying to help. So here's the technique, right? So before you go to sleep at night, you enter in that state right between sleeping and going to sleep. Right before there, you're still somewhat consciously aware, but you haven't quite gone into a dreaming unconscious state. And it's called the hypnagogic state. A lot of people are familiar with it. In the morning, if you're really drowsy, that's called the hypnopompic state. Both are valid, but you could do anything to get into this state at any point in the day. So if you wanted to have a sip of alcohol, if you wanted to smoke a joint that makes you sleepy, if you wanted to do anything that gets you into that state, that's valid. There's no holy way to get into this state and then this is how it works. It's just that's the only state you're going for, is a drowsy, bordering on sleep state. So you do that, and then this is where your stuff comes in. You need to figure out, in the truest sense of the word, what you want the most in your life, what you want the most from life, what is your biggest desire, your wish, your passion, and you need to go through until you are very clear about what you would like to see happen in this world. And there's no imagining going on. You're just thinking of, what this is. So then as you're going into this drowsy state, what you're going to do is, in your imagination, we all know how to do it. You just imagine things. In this hypnagogic state, you imagine a scene that implies what you desire or wished for has happened. It's already happened, so it's going to be a scene that follows the thing already happening. And let's say you wanted a lot of people for your dreams course, right? So you would see a lot of subscribers, on your email list saying, oh my gosh, a lot of people want to sign up. And then you would talk to your wife or someone else you love or someone and say, oh my gosh, all these people signed up. This is incredible. So that's a scene you would imagine in your mind. And what you want to do is charge that scene with as much sensory detail and vividness as you possibly can. So make it essentially as real as you can to mimic this world, realer if you can, and incorporate all of your senses in it. So that's the next step. And it's going to be a relatively compact scene. And then the other thing you're going to do is then load it with the emotions and feeling, typically positive, that's what you'd be going for, loving emotions, into this imaginal scene. So imagine how you would really feel that if you imagine this thing, then it happened. How would you feel? It would be a pretty crazy sensation. So you do that, and then you go to sleep, or you get up out of the chair, or whatever it is. And then another important part, and people argue, have different debates on this. I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't take any direct steps outside of what you would normally do. So you need to be honest with yourself to make what you desired happen. So that means if you want to be a successful musician, keep making music, but don't try to then make connections with people. Don't try to climb the charts and send out a lot of emails or contact a bunch of people. Don't do any of that, because the reason I recommend not doing that is because then you'll have a bridge of incidents that you can say, oh, well, this is why it happened. It wasn't because I imagined it. It didn't happen. But what will happen, regardless of whether you do that, if you really believe this and do this every night or until it happens, is eventually your imagination constructs a series of events that makes this thing happen, and you'll literally walk into the thing you imagined. And if you believe that it's only going to be somewhat like you imagined, that's what you'll walk into. But if you believe that the exact thing you imagined will happen, and you really feel and know that, and there's this kind of weird point where something is valid. I've experienced it multiple times with things that have and haven't happened. And when it happens, you'll know it. And this is an operative power, I don't know what else to call it, that I've vetted and experienced before I knew about it, and then subsequent to knowing about it. And it 100% works, is all I can say. And I think it applies to literally everything. So what gives reality its substance are stable imaginal acts. That includes gravity, that includes the idea of karma, that includes the idea of anything anyone has ever thought up or seen in this world. What I do, and I will add to this, I'm very confident that the source that upholds this kind of operative law or whatever it is is a very loving, generous, like it's a very loving, unconditional love type thing. It's not some weird tricky fuck around thing that's, oh my god, are we existentially fucked forever? It really feels like there's substance that actually delivers and does this stuff. So essentially what I'm saying is that I think the I amness of our mind, that sense of I that we all have inside of ourselves, I'm quite certain that's what people refer to as God, as source, as energy, as consciousness. That is literally in all of us creating what we perceive in external reality. And as I've kind of subscribed to this idea and used this technique, I've just been blown away. And it's reality functions not all the time, but a lot of the times much more like a dream than what we're used to. And then on top of that, I'll just say, I think this is happening for everyone, regardless of whether they want it to or not. So it's at least a good idea to try it.
Well, the reality is that most people dream 4 or 5 dreams a night, and most people in our society, which is not an inner society, it's an outer society.
Yeah, very much
it's,
so.
The value is not inside that you're, oh, look, I'm all, I have nirvana and I've reached it. And yet in this world that we live in, you're kind of considered a loser. And I think that the fact that we don't listen to our dreams, we don't, they have no validation in the world, is why I trust dreams, because the world doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to trust that inner world that's coming from whatever the universe has your back kind of feeling, that if you could plug into that, which is, I'm reading that book by Gabrielle Bernstein called The Universe Has Your Back. And it's basically saying exactly what you just said. Whatever this all is, it's in us. We are it. We're not Noah and Stephen with our personality traits. It's way beyond that. We're leaves on a tree that are connected to something much bigger. And once we surrender to that feeling, then our lives can start losing the anxiety, because all of the anxiety is basically the ego fear. The mind is brilliant at coming up, is starving all the time to make plans, make up fears, make up stories. Yes. Where the body is just forever always making miracles and magic. How you're walking around and what the chemistry takes of the trillions of cells inside you, orchestrated and coordinated together to make you lift your arm, or to smile, or to have a thought, or have an active imagination, is simply unspeakably brilliant.
Right. And
the mind that we developed is constantly undercutting that. And that negative mind thing is what a lot of my course is about. It's learning to quiet that mind, to not give it, see it, recognize it, and move on, because it's limiting you. It's limiting your very essence of who you are, and you're connected to and connection everywhere. So I'm going to do that tonight. I love that.
Oh,
I love
it works.
Because
go ahead.
Let me, I was going to say, because I think it's a good thing to try to figure out, this last year is the first year of doing the course, and what did I learn from that kind of thing about dreams and people? Number one, women tend to be more interested in this world than men.
Interesting.
Which is whatever the reason. That I've come across that a number of times, which I wish I had an all-male dream group. I think it would be absolutely fascinating.
I know some people who I'm going to put in touch with you who I think you'll really appreciate, who are very much interested in their dreams. I'm sure many of them will hear this and hit you up before I get in touch with them.
I'm just saying, they're more, you tendency to have my experience has been the seekers that I've been reaching have been looking for purpose. By the way, that is the purpose I've arrived at. What I'm doing now, talking with you and about the course, that is my purpose. I've lost a lot of interest in a lot of things that used to interest me in the world. Is kind of shedding of things I used to do, and realize that's not where I am right now. Where I am right now is discovering my purpose at this moment in time and sharing it with people as I've had that shared with me. That's the code. If you have a mentor that has done something for you then you need to be that mentor. Not need to be, you will be that mentor for someone else down the line. That's the kind of universal code. So for me, the prerequisites of anyone that I work with is, first you have to remember your dreams. You can't. I'm not interested in that. That's not me. You have to come with dreams, maybe one or two, maybe three a week, whatever. But you have to be able to make reference. And all the people I've worked with are doing that, and it makes it much more intriguing. The second one is you must be hungry for change within you. You must be starving, or as one of my clients said after a session, I feel hydrated. I feel inner hydrated.
That's
and
good.
I love that expression. Because you're hungry to be different. You don't want to stay in the rut. This is off tangent, but not. Dreams really fall into three categories. One is the residue of the day you just had, the anxiety or the tension or whatever, the good things. It kind of gets rid of those stories for the day. It kind of cleans itself out as a clear slate for the next day. The second type of dream is the one that it's kind of your own personal mythology, what you're walking around thinking the world is. And that's based mainly on your childhood. And the third is the deeper stuff, the search for the self, the spiritual, the spiritual realization of that part of you that is beyond your personality. What's interesting is most of the people that I deal with are still so deeply hung up with the negative view of themselves from childhood. They can't change it. It's so powerful. If you think about it, when we come out onto the planet and you've got two young babies in your life, those experiences are so powerful.
Don't tell me that now. Don't tell me that now. Like fucking toddlers. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Of course I know this.
God. But so with my course, it's not just a chatty course. I always have some action going with awareness. Put it into play. So, for example, one of the clients I had wanted to travel, but she had this came out in a dream, her passport, she didn't have her passport available, needed to renew it. So the assignment for me was get the passport done. Your dream is about travel, wanting to explore, but you have a dead passport. The way to activate it is go tomorrow and get the passport. When you have a dream, you have awareness of what's inside you. It's not enough to go, oh, that's nice. You need to make a step forward, which allows the validation of your dream to take reality in this world. Mm. So I'm a doer. I don't have a lot of patience for permanent paralysis. People that are addicted to negativity.
Right.
And they don't really want to, they say they want to give it up, but they're not really prepared to give it up. That area is the biggest area that I deal with. And so as we break through that area, you then the dreamer can now move much closer to her or his own path that they want to take in life.
Okay.
But you got to break the other one.
Let me ask you this. Let's say I say exactly what you just said, but say to you that applies to waking life, not just our dreams. I really believe, because I really think it really is. This is really a dream. Here's the thing. I don't want to convince someone that we're going to start flying around and all the magical things that happen in our dreams are going to happen in this waking life. I think enough people believe that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen. It won't. But I think when you use this technique, and here's another thing talking about trauma, because I love that you brought that up, that a lot of people, this is a block that people know is real. I'm a parent now. I can see, you know this, you can watch the active trauma going on in a certain incident. You can say, oh shit, this is definitely going to have some lasting repercussions. So like, for instance, our toddler got very, very sick, very high fever, just when we had a newborn at home. And we found out it was very contagious and not a good virus for a baby. And the doctor told us he can't go near the baby. So our older son is the sweetest kid I have ever met. all he wants to do is hug and love his brother. And one time he was sneezing, he was coughing, and he was going near, and I went, no. And he lost his shit. And I'm like, oh man, I know that one's embedded in there. However, this isn't just to tell a story of how shitty of a parent I am. What I'm saying is this, is that I found another kind of imaginal technique that I have seen again through direct experience. I'm not just proselytizing this stuff and saying, oh, this is the best and evangelizing it, because it's new. I've used it. It's worked. It's crazy. Is this idea is, let's say there is childhood trauma. Let's say there's something you remember being very traumatic. This doesn't even have to be when you were a kid. It could be at any point in your past. You do the same exact technique with the sensory vividness, the imagining, the feelings, and you just change it. And it doesn't mean that, the person, let's say it was another person you had a disagreement with, you don't go to the person in real life and be like, we never had that fight. And they're like, oh yeah, we never had that fight. Like, it still happened, but the internal impact of imaginally feeling yourself into that really changes your state of consciousness. I mean, we were talking about right before air, I was telling you all the crazy shit that was going on in my life, just objectively. And I've noticed for the most part, see if Alexis agrees with this, but for the most part, I've been pretty stable relative to how I normally would be in terms of emotional reactions. And I really attribute that a lot to this kind of imagining myself out of these states. When you talk about negativity and getting sucked into that, I mean, it happens to everyone in a lot of different aspects of life. But if you can feel yourself and imagine yourself or assume yourself or just pull yourself out of that state first, of consciousness first, everything else starts to change. It's a very hard thing to describe until you experience it enough. But I think it applies not only to dreams and interpret them symbolically to get insight into our unconscious, the part of our mind we can't see, but I think it's like an equally incredible tool for just our regular everyday, we woke up, we're in the earth world life. It's just been astounding when I apply those same principles to our everyday life, what happens.
Is there an example that you have of where that's worked amazing? I mean, you kind of talked a little bit about your sick child, but is there another example where you've done something and then you had the experience, you went, oh my God, this is working?
Yeah, I'll give you a minor and a major. I'll give you two majors and a minor. How about that? The minor one, the first one that really, well, I'll start by this. The first night I started doing this was the first day I had ever asked myself, like, what do you want in life? Like, I had gone through 35 years of life, getting married, a kid. I have an awesome life. I have awesome friends. I have an amazing family. Everything is pretty good, but I never sat down and was like, you know what? This is what I want, right? Basically the purpose of your course. I had never done that. So that was the first day I did that. And this was like 45 days ago. It's astounding. But anyway, I figured that out. So then I had some material to work with for my imaginal scene. And what didn't happen right away is that thing didn't happen the next day. But what happened the next day is I got a series of phone calls and interactions of people telling me about the most incredible synchronicities, just objectively, like, holy shit. Like, one of them I can't speak about because there's an NDA involved. And it's like a real NDA, not like a bullshit, like everyone wants you to sign NDA. It's like, oh my God. But there just a lot of people came out of the woodwork to tell me about all these weird synchronicities. So that was the first thing that happened. The second, the thing that first imaginally happened that kind of like really caught my attention, this was when Alexis was still pregnant. She was going to and from work, and she had to go to a doctor's appointment one day, and she was needed to go back to work after that. And it was like a far drive, and she was pretty pregnant, and I could just tell it was really stressful for her. And I told her, I was like, that sucks. She was like, yeah, I know. So then I was doing this imagining stuff. I was doing it during the day. I was just like really into it. It was like fresh for me then. And I was doing it during the day, and I imagined in her boss's voice, in her boss's head, telling herself, you know what? I actually went with Alexis to a doctor's appointment last week. I think she should be able to work from home. She can't take the day off, but she can work from home. And I was like, all right, that sounds like something that is definitely going to happen. So then I get up from my stuff within 30 seconds. Oh, and I imagined this. This is the scene I imagined to confirm it. I imagined Alexis calling me, my wife calling me and saying, guess what? And then I'd go, Did your boss let you work from home? So that's what I imagined specifically. So I get up, wake up out of this state. Within 30 seconds, a minute tops, I got to see Alexis calling. I'm like, holy shit, it's happening. I pick up the phone. She goes, guess what? And I go, your boss gave you there. And she goes, how do you know? So then it was like, all right, that's weird. Maybe it's just like this precog little thing, but that's just like a little psychic thing you could look at from a number of perspectives. I wasn't completely sold, even though I thought it was interesting. So here are the two big things that have worked. So our son, Gabriel, who was born, had these, the doctors freak you out about jaundice in babies. Like they really get you freaked out about these levels called bilirubin levels. And the reason is, it's not because they're assholes, not just because the medical system's fucked up. It's because there's preventable conditions, 100% preventable, that if these levels get too high, it can indicate there's a problem with the liver. But they got you all freaked out, and all these doctors freaked out for accountability purposes about these numbers and these levels of what were going on. So the first day Gabriel was born, everything was fine, no worries whatsoever. He was 15 days early, so they're just like kind of looking at him. Second day, I get pulled into this room. I'm in this like very open state, and this girl goes to me, Gabriel, I feel like I know you. This is a really weird interaction. She's a nurse. She goes, I feel like I know you. I'm like, that's a weird thing to say. She checks his levels with this thing on his head, and she goes, oh, that's a little high. So from then on started this 3-day saga of his levels going crazy high. We had to put him under this blue light, and we're pretty much freaking the fuck out at this point because it's looking like he's spiking into like dangerous levels. He's early. So I tell Alexis, I'm like, listen, we got to try this imagining stuff. Like, just try it with me. Let's picture a number. Let's try to bring it down if we can. And we just started picking numbers, and I started telling my mom and other people. And within a few days, the numbers went down. Then we came home. Then we kind of forgot about it. Then the numbers started going up again. Then we started doing the imagining. Then they spiked back down to the point where the doctor was like, it's fine. Now anyone can look at that and say, hey, this is a regular pattern that happens to some babies. It's not a big deal. Here's two others. The other thing I specifically imagined was we were throwing this event, this ambient stargazing event that happened last Friday, July 5th. And this is an event that was pretty much dependent on nice weather and clear skies to be able to see all of the stars. We had like guided astrology. It was fucking amazing. The week of the event, it was going to rain. It was like 60, 70% rain. Not even a question of clouds. It was just going to be raining. So of course there are clouds, overcast, no light whatsoever. We almost canceled the event on Tuesday, 3 days before, because it was staying the same. And then I told my friends about the imagining thing. We all started doing it. And then against all odds, the night of, it was the clearest skies like anyone had ever seen. It was fucking insane. And here's the last thing. My dad had a little heart incident this past Friday. And usually I would freak the fuck out. Any death in the family close to me, I just intuitively always have thought I'm going to freak out when that happens. And maybe I will, maybe I won't, but that's just what it's felt like. But as soon as I got the news, I found out a day after this event I just described, actually. And he had been here and I had seen him and he looked fine. When I got told he was in the hospital, very quickly, I intuitively imagined and knew that there was nothing physically wrong with him. And my dad is someone who, if you looked at him, probably wouldn't think that. He's like heavy and like he smokes, like he should be. He's the person you expect to find blockages. And you can tell by the tone of my voice, he's getting discharged from the hospital today. They did a catheterization, looked at his arteries, and found that there was minimal to no blockage, nothing needed, not even medications. So again, you can look at all of this stuff and say, well, it would have happened anyway. But I can tell you from my own direct experience, the felt aspect of my state of consciousness, the equanimity, the knowingness, the just kind of, I don't know how to describe it, just recognition that this is an imaginal scene that's playing out. You know, there is going to be a time when both my parents die, and I'm not going to imagine it away. That's not what I'm describing. But what I'm saying is when you use this power within the kind of context of our reality, it works in a weird way. And I think health-wise too, this has tremendous ramifications, but first people have to figure out how to use it internally. So it's just been nuts. I mean, there's so many other ones. This is just in a short period of time with a newborn. So that's all I can remember.
it's once you going back to what we were talking about in the course having an inside
Yeah.
conversation. It's an inner. Once you're connected to that inner conversation and that act of imagination that you're doing is exactly that. It's tapping into your unconscious. It's connecting to the powers of of the universe.
Yes.
The thing that created you. You're part of it. So when you think it or whatever, then you're affecting it. You know, that's my whole thing. Once you can have inner dialogue with people, with someone, anything is possible.
Yes.
I really believe that.
Yes.
Because you're now connected to some power that I know nothing about, don't need to put a name on it because whatever, but it's in us.
That's right.
And we spend a lot of our lives ignoring that power. And that's where we lose our energy.
Yes.
That's where we lose our sense of purpose. That's where we're all caught up in the externals. And then they wonder why they're having a nervous breakdown or suicide rates are high or whatever, blah, blah, blah on. Because the gift that we've been given is being totally ignored.
That's right.
All the time.
That's right.
And so you're connected. It's who you're working. And by the way, what we're doing is purpose. You have this putting this conversation on is affecting what you've been describing will affect me because we're not talking about okay, and what kind of shoes did you buy the baby, and where did you go on for 4th of July. We're having inner dialogue, and man, when you get to inner dialogue and then you're willing to act on it or be part of it and believe in it and surrender to it, synchronicity will follow in many, many forms.
Yeah. And I'd also add to that, like, you're doing it anyway. That's what I didn't realize. Like, a lot of people, even people who wouldn't consider themselves mystical or inner aware at all, like, let's use Donald Trump again as an example. I firmly believe the reason Donald Trump is president is not that he's actively aware that his imagination is super strong, but that's what he's doing. His vision for himself as president was greater than all of our collective vision of him not being president. And a lot of us were like, what the fuck? But this time around, what's been interesting is a lot of my friends who don't like Donald Trump kind of have this weird feeling that he's going to win again. I don't know if he's going to. Everything is malleable. We can jump into a timeline where that doesn't happen. I firmly believe that. But I really think high achieving people in all facets of what we deem the external material world are using this principle. They wouldn't think of it like that. But this is the same principle that Nikola Tesla used to design and invent the AC conductor or AC energy. Einstein did this for his theory of relativity. This is all literally how they saw in vision, in imagination, in whatever you want to call it, things that substantially altered and changed our world. And to think that we all don't have that ability is just wrong. Like, and once you do this thing enough and realize, like, this is pretty much a dream within certain parameters, there are certain laws that enough people believe in, so they exist, you really, really have not ultimate power and control over people, but a greater degree of control of your own states of consciousness, which again, I posit affect your external reality. They precede it. So yeah, I just feel like with your dream knowledge, combined with an operative technique, and just to be clear, I think what you've been getting at too is like, I'm talking about that I amness as both our individual consciousness, your sense of Stephen, my sense of Noah, anyone's sense who's listening, and this greater source. You described it as leaves of the tree, which I love, and then the tree itself. We're also the tree itself. That's just not our individual sense of who we are, but we are still the tree and can do a lot of the things the tree does. Can we necessarily support an entire other thing? No. Maybe if we get cut off and fall to the ground and plant a new seed, we can. But otherwise, it's not the easiest thing to do. But we're the same. And if that's true, that means literally anyone can try this. And that's what I like about the technique aspect of it. It's one thing to conceptually think about this and feel it and know it. But if you can empirically test it, and be like, all right, I'm going to do this crazy shit I heard on a podcast. And then it starts to work. Like, whoa, that's a game changer. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
As is a game changer when you dream of a friend that is having trouble, and you pick up the phone next day, not to say I dreamt about you, but just say, "How are you?"
Yeah.
You're activating the inner world. When you activate, that's why action for me is critical. That people, no change happens without action.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. This is.
And most of us are strangely, maybe it's just the nature of the beast. We live in a completely changeable world. I always, my line is, I can't keep up with all the changes in my life. I can't. Just when you think you've painted the house and it's in good shape, then a year later something happens to the house and you have to go back and do it again. It's like endless change. It never stays the same. And you know that and yet we hang on to these visions of ourselves and the world as if they were permanent.
Yes.
As if this is who you are. So many people are fighting through that time trying to get to their place of individuation. The earth is undergoing individuation, both physically in terms of the climate, and I think in terms of idea, we've come into a really critical time. By the way, in 2016, 100 million Americans did not vote.
Yeah.
And I point out that one of the visions, if you don't have a vision that democracy is good and it's important, and you let it slide and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter because all politicians are crooked and don't vote, you're going to get what you deserve. And that's one of the things that Trump, I'm sure, is counting on, is that people's indifference and less people voting, more of an opportunity for him to win. But don't make any mistake, in Jungian terms, he is the shadow who is in position of the self. He's a shadow figure that should never have power because they're basically destructive. He's satanical. Think about it. But isn't
it a reflection of our nation's kind of psyche since its inception? Like, to me, he's the perfect representation of the shadow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there are a lot of things I could sit here and be negative about, but yes, he's the shadow, and it's what we're calling, that's what's being called. But so therefore, what can you control that? Not really, except when you vote. But you can work on yourself.
Right.
You can discover your shadow. You can make sure your shadow doesn't take over your life and ruin things. You can become aware and conscious and suddenly living out of your inner life with active imagination, with your dreams, and start putting them out into the world so that your soulness, who you are, is having an impact on someone. That's the game. I mean, the game for me at this point in my life is to have an impact.
Yeah.
And the people I take, and I don't take, it's a good lead in, because people say, well, how do I reach you, or how do I do that stuff, or what happens with it? Well, it begins with a conversation for an hour. And at the end of that hour, if I think this is a good, energy relationship, and the willingness to dream, the ability to dream, the willingness to change and to activate the experience, the inner experience is there, then I take you on as a client. And then I never talk to you again until you do little assignments. So in this case would be pick up reading material, which is a dream journal, to pick out a dream journal, to I hand out a kind of a 30-page brief overview of dreams. You buy Herman Hesse's Damien, and maybe Jeremy Taylor's Wisdom of Your Dreams. And then you're going to learn 10 Jungian terms, and then you're going to read Damien, and then you're going to be writing dream memoir. And all this is, I move forward to the degree that you move forward. So, for example, if you contact me and I don't hear you for 6 weeks, that probably isn't going to work out, because, didn't have enough impact. But the course really has moments that you do that. And then someone says, well, what are you charging? And I go, it's free. It's free.
Yeah.
But there's one trick, and that is
the trick is it costs $10,000.
The trick is, I've been imagining $10,000 while you were talking, and that's the number that. So if you can just send me $10,000 today, I see a really happy future for you and your dream.
Uh,
No, I say, but I ask people to do a one-time donation of what they can afford. It could be $10, it could be 30, it could be 100, and they have to do that before I begin working to the Michael Fox Parkinson's Foundation, which I picked out for reasons of my own. And so I'm in the early stages of Parkinson's, and I'm not on medications, and I'm mentoring with an amazing man in Israel, and I'm doing a lot of dancing and active stuff.
awesome.
So it's all good, but I want to. There's no cure to this problem. A lot of people have it. Alan Alda, the actor, has it. And,
I didn't know
tons of-
I
a
didn't
lot
know
of people-
Alan Alda had it.
Yeah, he came out with that about 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh no.
And it's a progressive but slow moving, and they don't have a cure. But this institution, the Michael J. Fox, is really working on it. So I ask people to give something to that, which will make them feel good. They're doing something good, and then that's it. There's no more payment. There's no more three
That's awesome.
installments. There's nothing. It's just you doing your thing. And when I think you are on that path and trust yourself enough, we're done.
That's really cool. That's like
It's it's
like anti-therapy payment structure.
Yeah.
It's like you pay me
Yeah,
once a week forever, no matter what.
I just feel like I don't care. I've reached that point where I just don't care. Like if suddenly, I had an imagination, I had 10,000 people, I'd have to be organized. But it still works for me that
You do what you want. I think
10,000 people to a donation.
I mean,
to calls that I like. That's more important to me than sending me $50 or sending me $100.
well, I found when people have that intention and aspiration with business activities that it often exceeds their expectations because I truly believe that's how things are going to function in the coming years and will need to function, because if we're just slaves to the corporations that have been created by people and then they take over, we find ourselves where we are now. So I think that's a direct antidote to a lot of the problems we see, which emanate from the business world and professional world a lot of the times. And it's understandable for a lot of reasons, but
business can come from those decisions. Like you make a decision to do something for free and then you get a client and then that client ends up being
I've made tons of money doing that. Yeah,
job.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you once you open your world up, you don't know who or what is coming in, but you can figure it out. And by the way, speaking of your premise of waking up is a dream,
Yeah.
that's interesting because that makes you, when you meet someone in that particular day that comes your way, it's a message point.
Yep.
It's an opportunity for you to see something about that encounter that applies in some other way to your life or whatever.
Yep.
In other words, you're treating the statement is that others in your life are merely mirrors of you.
Yes.
Meaning that if you see bad behavior, then you become aware of your bad behavior, or what is the moral compass? What's the golden rule here? Gee, they're breaking it. I was listening to all this stuff on TV about this billionaire pedophile guy.
Epstein. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, man, you get away with nothing.
No.
You thought you were clear.
These days
Your
you
life
don't.
is about to come, and his life is effectively going to be over.
Oh, Dunzo.
When he's put in.
Oh, not
done.
just his.
So
Not
you
just
thought
his.
that
There's
was
like
over.
so many politicians and other celebrities who are going to get rolled into this. It's fucking terrible. Who's a pedophile? I didn't know there's so many pedophiles. It's insane. It's insane.
That's the time we live in. If you told us 10 years or 15 years ago and all this, the amount of corruption we're in, that's why what we're talking about, why going into the inside world, why exploring, knowing it is absolutely critical.
Yes.
And does that mean that you remain passive? No. It means that you're going to go inside to figure out who you are and what is your purpose on this planet, and then go do that purpose and stop doing what everyone else is wanting you to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think this is what I'm interested to see, and I think it's really going to be a nice alley oop. Is I think the imaginal techniques combined with your dreams course is like a
Yeah,
solid slam dunk. Just because
I love that.
I really, really do,
Love that.
because it's just like the tool. You'll be able to believe you can create a. Here's the thing. If you know what you want to do, it's sometimes hard to add the belief in that you can do it. Even if all the talents and skills and signs and everything are there for you, I think if you start to teach yourself or realize that you can do whatever you want, and I don't, again, you have to really believe it. So, are you really going to believe you're going to grow a horn out of your head? You're probably not going to be able to believe that. So it's not going to happen. But, knowing who you are, know thyself, and within the confines of the golden rule, like, do whatever you want. That combined with something like your course, which kind of ramps up the unconscious aspects of your dreams and symbolism, I really think could work for people. And it's like free. No, we're not charged. There's no upsell here.
No. But I think that's a really good, because what I like about it is it takes the inner life and then it takes the same concepts and applies it to the outer life, realizing you're receiving opportunity and messages all day long.
Oh, I
And
know this. So
as opposed to this is the reality, and I'm at a gas station and I'm getting gas. What is it at the gas station? Just being aware of your environment, being conscious of your environment and who's coming through it, and not judging it, but just taking it in, is is a great way to approach the conscious part of our lives.
well, it's the
I love that. I'm definitely going to I'm
yeah,
going to steal that from
steal it.
and
Oh,
use it as
it's the
great.
reality of the situation. So I know this not just because of recent discoveries and ideas, but when I experienced life as one giant synchronicity for 3 months in my early 20s, this is exactly what was going on. It was not, I think what synchronicities are a lot of the time is a recognition of a pre-imaginal event that was then outpictured by our imaginations into the world, that totally mess with our rational and analytical minds. Be like, wait, what? How did that happen? That's weird. And I think what I essentially did, I don't know how. I think something preceded the physiological aspects of it, given what I was on at LSD for a very short period of time. I think I just dampened the parts of my brain that were able to, rationally, cognitively put together everything. And I stayed in this imaginal state where when I was imagining something, instead of it like taking, a day or two or a month or a week or an hour, it was like right then, like within a few minutes at most. And it was such a long period of time that I was in this state that I got to go through regular states of consciousness as well. Like, what the hell? Like, this is weird. Like, I'm a person. Like, what is this? Here's some information I didn't know before. And what you're describing about being at the gas station, every single encounter took on that symbolic resonance in a deep, deep way. And by virtue of that, I would meet a much broader range of people by doing. I wasn't approaching them; they would approach me. I didn't have to go up and talk to someone to expand it. So, it's a phenomena that I'm well versed in, and now feel, having used it and also recognizing the validity of dreams and the pioneers of dream research and people who looked at them as tools to our consciousness and unconscious. Like, there's a lot of groundwork that's already been laid for how, if this is a dream within a certain context, we have some maneuverability in it. So, yeah.
I think it's great. Do we have time for me to tell one
Yeah.
individuated synchronicity
Please do.
story that I probably, but I always come back to it because I think it sums up certainly what we're talking about and definitely my approach.
Yeah.
This is back in the 70s, and I was very young, and I was coming out of a relationship and was very depressing. I had no purpose. So I was in that vulnerable 20s time when you don't know what you're meant to do in life. And I was studying dream therapy with a wonderful mentor named Elizabeth Forsberg. Let's not forget the mentorship, that those who are truly going on the path of individuation, here's something they can guarantee when you're taking on that path. you will come across mentors. Mentors will enter your life as guides to help you for sure. No question about it.
Here, get the phone. Get the phone. Yeah.
No. Sorry, phone. You'll stop in a second. Let me move it. Yeah.
All right, continue. I could understand, but I know people listening be like, I cannot hear anymore. All right, continue with the story, though.
Okay. Sorry. So I drove down to Montpelier, Vermont, to do the dream sessions once a week, and I looked at this mountain, which is called Camel's Hump, and it's also known as the Lion Couchant, which in French is the crouching lion. And I looked at it and I said, that is an amazing mountain. I'd love to climb that. It was winter. And as I went back and forth over the weeks, I came to me that I said, if I could climb that mountain in winter by myself, everything will be fine. It's like your imagination. I imagined myself at the top of the mountain, and at the top of the mountain would be this release, this freedom. And so I said, and this is what's important, you got to follow those instincts. If they keep calling to you, if they don't go away, they keep saying, climb the mountain. And finally you climb the mountain. That's a critical moment, because now I'm activating the inner life that is calling me.
Yeah.
And up the mountain I go. And I see a little house over to the right with smoke coming out of it. It's like middle of January. It's very cold, but a clear day. And I stop at the cabin, knock on the door, and I can see a man in there that was on emphysema and was on oxygen, and his wife. And he had been a jazz musician and all this stuff, and this is where they were living. I said, look, I'm going up the mountain, but if I don't come down by 3, could you notify someone? Because, I don't think I'll need help. And they said, of course. And meanwhile, take these snowshoes, and here's a map, and off I went. And at the very top of the mountain, it took me 3 or 4 hours to get to the top. It was bare. It was snow on it, but it was windy. It was 50-mile-an-hour winds, and I crawled the last 300 yards to the top. And then I stood up and opened my arms, and just suddenly felt this incredible confidence that everything was going to be all right, that it was okay. And I just screamed into the night. I'm sure I said so. I think I just screamed, fuck me, I'm alive. And I came down, this is a true story, came down the path and had tea with the couple, the jazz player and his wife at their house. And then for every season, for the next few years, I would climb that mountain and stop and have tea with them. Okay? Flash forward. Now remember, I have no idea what I'm going to do in my life. But I had this moment on the mountain. 10 years later, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm an actor on a TV show called Newhart. The show is set in Vermont. I'm in a scene, so this thing that's taking place was actually caught on camera. I'm sitting at a table. I'm reading the paper, which is the current paper. They give you the current paper, so in case the camera picks up, it doesn't say San Francisco Chronicle in Burlington, Vermont. So it had the paper, and Bob Newhart was upstage having a scene. Then he was going to come over to me, so I was just reading the paper, waiting for him to come. And I turned the page, and there in the obituary is my jazz player who had died that day, the day before. So I'm discovering, while on a show about Vermont, I'm discovering about the man who lent me the snowshoes. I discover his obituary on the paper in Los Angeles on the show, that he had just died. And that was the kind of, that was, it all came full circle.
Yeah, and you had
up on that mountain.
Yeah.
I had no idea where it would lead me, but I had faith that it would lead me somewhere. I had no idea about Los Angeles, but there was a synchronicity in that very moment on camera saying, this all began with the day you climbed the mountain.
Yeah, well, the symbolism of the mountain there, obviously. I mean, listen, to me, obviously, looking at the imagination stuff, it sounds like a pretty good dream. So, all right, I'm going to have links to everything
You
for
are?
the Dreams course, so people will be able to click them. But if people want to, they're like, all right, I'm sold. What do they do to get in touch with you?
Well, I think there's the web, which is,
Yep.
I think, thedreamscourse.com. I think that's what it says. And if they go there, they'll effectively find my email that you so kindly helped me put together. And there's my email, which is csmoke@optonline.net. And they should reach out to me. That's how it's been working this past year.
That's cool.
If any of this stuff that we've been talking about resonates, the worst that, that's your first moment of bravery, reach out. We'll have a conversation, and either that will lead to the next decision of whether this is the right course for you and the right course for me. If it is, then there we go.
All right. Sounds good. Let's end with the 3 questions and then 1 question. So 4, I guess. I
Okay.
should probably start saying 4 questions. First question, favorite color?
Green.
Favorite number?
9.
Favorite animal?
Eagle.
Nice. Practical tip that has helped you in your life that you could share with people listening. Could be anything.
A practical tip.
Yeah.
When you're in the company of someone who knows more than you, shut up and listen.
I'm so bad at that. That's a really good tip.
Well, we're talkers, so we can, we can eat a room up, but that's what we do. So,
Yeah.
It's not our fault.
No, but it's a really good tip. Steven, thank you so much for doing this. Let's catch up soon off air.
Great, Noah.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to that episode. Go check out Steven at the link on this podcast. It's his email. I'm not going to just say it out loud. You can go check it out. If you're interested, those of you who get it, do it. A reminder, on syncpodcast.com, there is a menu item that says Imagine. Let's say you don't believe in this really, or you kind of believe in it, but you're having trouble doing it. You can have me do it for you. Just tell me what's going on. I've gotten, 10 of these in the past few days. I'm doing them. It'll be really interesting when people start reporting back. And when people do, maybe we'll aggregate some of those stories. Here's what's going to happen. Eventually, people will wake up to the fact that this is going on. If you're in the lead about it in your reality, it's going to be a smoother transition for you. We know that there are seemingly insurmountable odds and problems in the world, and that's not easy to overcome through logic and reason. If we did, we probably would have gotten there already, right? But we haven't. We may be making progress. It depends who you're asking. Like Steven Pinker or someone probably says things are pretty good in the world, but depends where you are, right? So if we want to truly make things better, this is how we do it. And don't mistake using your imagination to affect reality as passivity. That's not what it is. So don't make that misapprehension. That's it for this week. I will see you. Oh, let me say this too. Just won't let it go. I'm going to do more episodes that are not Skype based. Internally, I know and feel for this podcast to be what I want it to be. I want there to be more live conversations. Before, I imagined I was hindered by my geolocation and financial situation. No longer the case. That is no longer the case. So I'm going to make a firm commitment to you, the listener, and myself that the vast majority of episodes, unless there's someone very special and we can't connect in person, will be done with not on Skype and not remotely. Because why? Why not just imagine them being in person? They're so much better. So that's what we're going to do. So for those of you who stay tuned to this, you know a little bit more about the show than the people who checked out. That's it. I will see you next week.